So you're looking to upgrade your MWS hop-up system. Now in this video I will be replacing the hop-up arm and the hop-up rubber, and this kind of also includes changing your barrel as well. So basically that is what I'm covering in this video. So this just includes the Tokyo Mauri rifles, so gas blowback rifles. So this is what I'll be covering in this video. Now I have a CKBR. It is upgraded externally, so it might be a little bit different to change out your rail to my rail. But if you own a Mark 18, I know those can be quite iffy sometimes, but this is basically what you need. So it is basically a barrel tool wrench, and this gets your C-clip or a clamp off your rail so you can actually access the hop-up unit. You can make your own, but it probably will cost you a little bit more, but I just kind of got it from a shop abroad. I don't know what shop I got it from, but this is what I use to get my rail off. And so to actually get to the nut itself, you will need to unscrew each of these screws that I'm pointing at the moment, and the whole kind of, if you pull on the grip upwards, it will kind of all slide apart. But now focus on my gun. This is a Mark 14 rail from Angry Gun. So basically all that I have to remove is these two Allen keys. Now I make it look very easy in the video, but these were actually tread locked, so I had to use a heat gun to actually get the screw to actually move. So you might need a heat gun and you might not. It depends on if the gun is stock or you've done it yourself in the past. But usually these guns kind of come with some type of tread lock onto it. You also won't need a lot of tools. It is basically what your rail has, like if it's an Allen key or a torque screw, you will need them type of tools and sizing. But for my rail, I'll be using just an Allen key. But basically all that you really need is an Allen key and a little tiny small Allen key as well for the two screws that I'll show you in a bit. So as I said earlier on, for my rail I will need just a little small Allen key to get these two nuts off, and basically a little smaller Allen key to get these two kind of balancing screws off as well. So whenever you have them screwed off, basically the whole rail just kind of slides off. So just be very careful to make sure you don't scrape anything or damage anything whenever you're pulling it off. So just pull it off quite slowly and making sure it's quite smooth coming out of the barrel. And so this next part, this is a wee barrel nut. So on the underground rail, it's actually quite nice. I like the way it's a little bit big so you can kind of get a grip of it. So basically some people use like a barrel nut tool to get it off, but you don't really need it. What I use is just a kind of chunky Allen key and just kind of put it into one of the holes and just twist left, and it just comes off quite easily. Now again, this was tread locked. Now it was quite easy for me to pull it off, so it wasn't too bad. But whenever I did put this rail on first, I did put a little, like a very small amount of tread lock, so it wasn't kind of a nuisance to take it off again if I was to do any upgrades. And whenever you take this barrel nut off as well, there will be a little small spacer to actually compress the barrel into the receiver, just so it's not falling out on you whenever it is back together. So keep an eye on that. If you have one, place it aside, make sure you don't lose it, because if you don't put it back in, the barrel will literally just fall out. So make sure you have that nice and safe. Now at this point I'd be quite careful, so basically turn off your hop-up completely. As I'm doing here, it's just in the receiver, on the top of the receiver, so turn that off and then pull on the barrel. Now be very careful pulling on the barrel because something can break, so make sure you're pulling it straight and not to an angle, and you should be 100%. It does take a little bit of force to actually get it apart, so kind of do as I'm doing, kind of bring it close to you and just be very gentle and do kind of like a pulse of kind of force on it, if that makes sense. So whenever you get all the rails off and all the bits and pieces off, this is what you're left with. So this is the outer barrel, and then your hop-up unit is actually in the barrel as well, just by this gold bit. So if you just kind of get your thumb and pull it outwards, and the whole barrel and the hop-up chamber and all that type of stuff comes out. So nothing will fall out on you, so don't worry about it. But just make sure you have kind of like a pressure on the hop-up like chamber, because they're not actually connected, they're only like kind of pressure fitted on, if that makes sense. So whenever you have all that off anyway, there is a little O-ring at the top of the hop-up chamber, and so basically you're going to have to get something quite small, or you can do it with your nails to kind of get that O-ring off. And so whenever you have that O-ring off, the whole assembly kind of just falls apart. Now don't worry, this is normal, this is the way it is, so I will show you basically everything on how to put it back together. So if you get confused, you can always rewind the video too. So for my upgrades, I'll be using the Flamingo pink hop-up rubber. This is for VSRs and gas blowbacks, and it is a 60-degree bucking too. And for my hop-up arm, I'll be using the Laylax MWS strike hop-up arm. Now what's actually good about this hop-up arm, it actually replaces the nub to make it more firm. Now as I show you here, it has like a wee nub already built into it basically, and it is, I think it's built out of aluminium, so it'll be a long lasting part, so it's not going to break down on you. So before you put anything on, just make sure you clean your barrel outside and inside. Luckily my barrel from the inside is quite clean, so I just was cleaning the outside of it, making sure it was all clean. You can either use a microfiber cloth and some degreasing oil. That's usually a good combination together, and it gets literally all the dirt and grime off it. So whenever you have all that clean, get your hop-up bucking and basically just place it onto the barrel. Now you'll see on the hop-up nub that it has like a wee line that is protruding from the bucking, so you kind of want that to the right of the opening of the barrel. And make sure it's all centered for you. This kind of might take a little bit of time, kind of center it and stuff, but usually it does fall into place quite simple. And so whenever you have the bucking in place and you're all happy with it, you can then get the right side of your hop-up chamber, and you can place the slot from the bucking into the slot of the hop-up chamber. And so whenever you have all that seated, then you can put in your hop-up arm. It goes into this wee hole here, and then get the other side of your hop-up chamber, and then basically just close the whole assembly together. And make sure everything is flush. Make sure there's no gaps or anything. Now whenever you put it into the outer barrel, it will kind of compress for you, but make sure everything is working before you put it back into the outer barrel, and make sure everything is lined up by pushing up on the arm. You can see through the barrel, you know, the nub actually activating the hop-up rubber. So before you put it back all together, make sure you get your O-ring from your hop-up chamber and put it back onto the chamber, and make sure it doesn't crack or overstretch, and it will just seat into the hop-up chamber, no problem. And so whenever you have all that seated, get your barrel into the outer barrel and make sure it is all pressed on. Make sure it's not wiggling or anything. And again, after that, whenever you have that seated as well, push up with the hop-up arm. Make sure nothing has shifted or anything. So make sure everything is just centered. So this can be quite a tricky part, and you can easily break something if you don't be careful. So the hop-up unit in your receiver actually has another arm as well, and your hop-up chamber also has one as well. Now the arm from the hop-up chamber actually goes underneath that arm from your receiver, so make sure the arm from your barrel is underneath the hop-up arm from your receiver. And so the barrel and the receiver is basically just pressed on. So just put a little bit of force into putting them back together. And after you have that all sorted, get your barrel spacer and put it back onto the outer barrel. And after you put the spacer back on, then get your barrel nut and screw it back on. Now you can also use thread lock on this as well if you want, but it's not necessary. But if you want the tightness to last a little bit longer, it is kind of required to use thread lock. And whenever you have all that screwed on, get your wee Allen key or your barrel nut tool if you want, and tighten the absolute bejesus out of it. Make sure it is nice and tight, just so everything is nice and compressed. So grab your rail and then basically just put it back on. This is kind of just like a balancing thing. You kind of want it flush with the top rail of your receiver. So just make sure it's all nice and centered whenever you are tightening it back up. What's easiest for me is tightening the two main screws first and then doing the two ones on the side last. Now don't tighten the two main screws fully, because you still want that type of range of motion whenever you're balancing with the two side screws. And also, whenever you're finishing tightening or before you're tightening, you can also thread lock the screws too, so they don't move on you. So when everything's back together and all screwed up, make sure your hop-up is working and activating. It should be, so make sure everything is working, everything is nice and centered, and that is basically how you install a hop-up arm, rubber, and barrel. That is basically the video. It is quite simple doing it. You kind of have to put yourself into the deep end. It is a lot of confidence doing it, and it can be quite confusing, but hopefully my video has shown you how to do it, and you're hopefully a lot more confident doing it while you are watching my video. I hope I explained it as well quite good for you so you can understand it. But again, let me know what you think of it. If you want more of these upgrade videos, let me know and I can definitely do them for you, since I am actually upgrading this gun as I am doing these type of videos. So hopefully the video was helpful, and if you have any more recommendations for upgrades, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to do a video in the future. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.